Got it.
I think we want audio, David.
Pardon me?
I think we want audio.
I'm trying to get audio. Steph, did you drop off?
I'm still here.
Okay. Were you able
Just
to?
my PDF isn't opening. Here it is. It's a few things going on at once.
Okay.
There we go. Okay. And there you go. Can you see it?
It's spinning.
Okay.
There we
go.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, here we go. 5:07 p.m. We're beginning the Bluewater Park System Local Advisory Committee meeting here on Thursday, November 3rd, 2022. First thing on the agenda is opening of the committee meeting, and we will first off, I'd like to thank everybody that's put in a lot of hard work here, especially in this past week and also beforehand, just preparing for this and upon a lot of reflection on the LAC members and presenting a whole bunch more questions back to municipal staff. Patrick Graham was great in responding back to us with a lot of clarification on things. So just want to put out a thank you to everyone that's participated so far. And the journey is not ending with tonight. It's just beginning on next steps as well too. So thank you everyone for even being part of tonight. So first point, approval of agenda. You did touch on introduction of late items. Steph, anything in regard to that?
I don't have specific late items. I just suspect that things will be a bit more free flow than indicated on this agenda.
Yeah.
Questions will be encouraged, and there is a lot of emails that will probably be referred to that would be provided in a revised package on table.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So nothing further for this one. So we'll go right to the recommendation that the Bluewater Park System Local Advisory Committee approve the agenda for November 3rd, 2022 meeting.
Mover. Seconder. Jonathan.
Glad you can see them.
I can see them. Yeah. All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Let's round to the minutes.
Okay, adoption of the minutes from the October 26, 2022 Bluewater Park System Local Advisory Committee meeting. Had a read through. I didn't see anything glaring that was different from how the meeting went. So for me, the recommendation that the minutes of the Bluewater Park System Local Advisory Committee meeting held on October 26, 2022 be adopted.
So mover. Who's moving? Jonathan.
There you go.
1 second. Jerry, you want to second that?
I didn't hear that. No second.
There
Okay.
you go.
I'll call for all in favor.
All in favor?
Great.
Good. So I think we're going to, at this point with the public comments, we'll switch it up a little bit, everyone. LAC has presented a whole bunch of questions back to municipal staff with a lot of answers. So we're going to be reviewing those. We'll let Patrick make some comments here in the next little bit, and then we'll get into the questions that we brought forward with answers to those, and then we can accentuate those with any further questions, because I'm presuming there'll be questions that have already been answered that we'll review with you that may not need to be discussed a second time. So we'll switch this up a little bit. So business arising, the next part, 4.1 business arising from the minutes. We'll hand this over to Patrick to discuss some more about water system replacement improvement plan, next steps. Patrick?
So would you like me to go through the questions that the LAC raised?
We could do that, but and maybe some of the questions would be the driver to maybe clarify a little bit more in regard to some of the proposals as the latter part of phase one, water main replacement sections that are high risk. Wouldn't mind just reviewing that a little bit more on some of the sections of the piping, just as a reminder for all of us. I think that would be beneficial just for any of the participants that are part of this. But we could utilize the questions that LAC members did pose that you did a good job of providing answers back to as the driver for the next 20 to 40 minutes. Let's just use that to combine, and then we can just pull up information from the October 26th presentation as required for reference. How does that sound?
Sure.
Okay.
So going back to the questions that you sent to staff on Tuesday evening, there was the first question.
Steph, are we able to pull that email back and forth with Patrick answering the questions on that email list of questions? That would help just visualize.
Okay, so, I just really want to apologize. I haven't been able to get to that. So if you can
Do you
give
want
me
me
a
to
second
share
to
my
do that
screen?
admin.
Sure, Patrick.
Let me share my screen.
Actually,
Or can you
Patrick,
share-
if you're doing the talking, I can share it because you might want to see people a little bit more. Do you want to do that?
Sure, that'll help, Chris.
Yeah, I have it right here.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kristen.
Okay, so I think you should have that now, yeah?
Yes,
Okay.
there we go. So one of the first items that, upon reflection of after the October 26th community and LAC meeting was the continued concern in regard to future water supply and that. And Patrick has provided some information back in regard to aquifers, et cetera. And there has been some back and forth. Sean has provided some questions back, and of course Patrick further clarification on things. So just wanted to and this is a good one to build on, because what this is driving is the concerns by the community of will we be asking these same questions 10 or 15 years down the road and looking for further answers, because at that point we're running out of water again. And that's kind of the driving force behind why this question is still forefront with us, and really reinforcing that Bluewater residents have been stellar in water conservation and water usage for many decades, with some of the challenges that they've been through. And that some of the concepts and the future ways of rainwater catchment, et cetera, stays in the forefront of where the municipality is going. And I know that there's a big island-wide plan for a lot of initiatives in that, but just want to keep this up front. So so the question was regarding future supply versus future demand. What has been strategy in allocating resources and identifying partners to study water management island-wide and proposed water management solutions, including but limited to examining the viability of new catchment, storage, recharge facilities, new methods of water management, and future development of water management bylaws and restrictions. In our mind, drilling more wells into the same aquifers to us is not a sustainable solution. We need to have a multi-pronged approach. So Patrick, you did a great job in answering some questions, and there's some further clarifications. But on the first paragraph, there was something brought up about the 2020 budget process. We all sat in the same room, kind of thing. Alice and I have had some chats about this as well, and that there was an initiative, and it's kind of on hold right now, but an island-wide water master plan, and which wasn't supported by council at the time, but there was concerns by the LACs. And just a bit of a clarification on that. There was some LACs that had some concerns with it because their systems are up to date. They feel they don't need to be involved with anything more. Others have some concerns, think that the plan is good for a go forward base, but the concern is how that it would be budgeted, because there would be aspects of that one being advantage to private landowners that rely on private wells or private water system, that the information collected could be advantage to them. So the question was posed back to the municipality. Should this be looked at as more of an island-wide reserves type of way of funding this? And that's kind of the way it's sat. So yeah, it is meshing with the larger picture. It's just how we get there and how those initiatives from an island-wide point of view are kind of budgeted out into the future. Did you want to say anything more in regard to that right now, Patrick?
Well, other than what I've written here, I mean, with the budget and staff resource limitations that we have, we're really stretched to focus on the key aspects that would be a part of an island-wide master plan. So, I mean, we have looked at, you know, the key water sources, which includes the west side aquifers that supply this community, as well as Grafton Lake, and advancing the plans for water system improvements, which, you know, the system doesn't have enough water. It's urgent. It needs to be advanced. The source for that water that we've identified is, you know, is really coming from the existing wells, optimizing the existing wells. You know, there was some analysis and assumptions about future demand and some assumptions relating to the impacts of climate change and additional development built into the aquifer assessments and engineering reports that followed from that. So it's not like we haven't looked at the question of future demand. In terms of the statement that drilling more wells is not sustainable, well, I mean, we don't, that's not a statement that really has any basis. Certainly before you would put any wells into any new wells would require some detailed investigation work. You wouldn't, and that would have to include the comprehensive test well monitoring, similar to what was done with the aquifer study, where you would ensure that any proposed new wells wouldn't adversely affect existing wells. If you're looking at new sources of water, and you made reference to new catchments, you know, getting water from somewhere else requires that it be delivered to the users. There was a question about aquifer recharge, and I did share some of the information, the feedback from the hydrogeologists about that. It is a difficult thing to do in bedrock aquifers, which is a network of water-bearing fractures, to make sure that you're coming up with a solution where you're actually, water you're injecting is going to support the wells that you want it to support. Requires a lot of exploratory work. Pre-treatment of the water is likely required. So it's possible you could do a lot of exploratory work and you know, incur a lot of costs and not actually end up with a feasible groundwater recharge solution. There's also the question of where that water comes from. So we provided some background on you know, what we have been doing. I'm not really sure what you're getting at with this question, or what the question actually is. You're looking for, you know, if you're looking at rainwater catchment, certainly that's something that could be pursued. It would typically make a lot more sense for new development. You do need a large storage facility for that to be effective. Installing rain barrels and that type of thing doesn't really provide much benefit in terms of the times of year when water is scarce. I'm not really sure what it is you're looking for beyond what I've said. I mean, we're advancing what we see as key elements, looking at the source water that's important for the municipal water systems, advancing the water improvements. We've been looking at progressive water rates. We're also going to be looking at bylaws that enable better enforcement relating to water management, and potentially looking at options for development restrictions where we have water supply concerns.
Yeah. And those are all very, very valid and important points that from a getting written down and being part of the minutes and being part of what our new mayor and councillor are seeing as the concerns that the Bluewater residents have for the west side aquifers is an important part of it. And Chana, do you have anything to add just further? Because you brought forward some very, very important and concerning points in regard to this, just to further expand on the discussions that we've had with Patrick.
No, nothing further. Thank you, Patrick, for all. As I said in the response, it was really well appreciated to see all of the thoughtful responses, because for us it's about helping respond to a whole series of community requests as well, and getting us informed with the most current and relevant information is helpful. I think if I may, I think one of the statements is I think what we're seeing isn't but the question is actually what I'm seeing in the responses is an acknowledgement that collaboratively we need to look at some alternatives, and it's great to hear that BIM is eager to consider some of these alternatives and investigate in a pragmatic manner. So that's just my reflections from all of this back and forth, and again, appreciated.
And I echo that, and other LAC members echo that, as well as not wanting to take it off the table, always keeping minds open on what we can do potentially different as different technologies, etc., come up to us in years ahead as we continue down this journey of existing infrastructure upgrades and ensuring that the water supply is going to be there for not just us over the next 10 or 15 years, but for decades to come for others that buy into and want to live in the West Side community. So yeah. Thank you for that, Patrick.
And I guess I would also add that monitoring the aquifer is something that's going to be ongoing, right? We've looked at it. There was a comprehensive study in 2020, 2021. We're actually updating that, reviewing the conclusion, mainly reviewing the key conclusions from that based on more recent data and operational experience. And that's going to be ongoing. I mean, we have some confidence that this is a robust water source for current and future demands. And if we see information that leads us to need to revisit that, then we certainly will. But there really isn't, in terms of water source, this is the water source for this this area, the side of the island. I mean, short of pulling water from Grafton Lake, there really isn't a this is our resource. We have to protect it, and that's one of the driving factors behind the plan that was laid out on the 26th.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, and we do see that and appreciate that, Patrick. Thank you. Okay, moving on to the next question, which is a bit of a financial question on the usage billing. How would that be regulated for users over the three local service areas, LSAs? We do understand that there's a cost to extract, treat, test, distribute potable water to all the users on the west side. How does BIM see this being allocated in the fees once all three water systems are interconnected? And a clear presentation on this will be required for community review before a recommendation can take place. And I think that'll be part of the information package that goes out for us. And you did clarify this in your answer here, Patrick and Kristen, in regard to that, because in the past we have been paying a per meter use of water coming out of the KE Bay water system. So just want to elaborate on that a little bit further.
Yeah, I think it would be what would make sense to us, and Kristen and I had talked about this, is that all of the operations costs, except for the distribution system, simply because the distribution systems are in different states in terms of their integrity and age. Then that work, it would make sense, it would be financed by each local area service individually, but all of the rest of the operations costs be shared across the systems. If we have, all of the well pumps, well, all of the King Edward Bay and Bowen Bay wells pumping into the King Edward Bay Reservoir and supplying all of the systems, then that would make sense that those operation costs are shared. And whether it's done on a per connection or volumetric basis is a detail we still have to resolve. But
are we, so Patrick, Jonathan, this is what I want to get in writing. So we've been promised, this is basically creating a West Side water system. Right? That's what you're doing here. By that statement, you're creating what, so are we going to get that officially in writing? That's what you're doing? Because there's been a conflict here, because Kristen responded about, the yearly charge that Bluewater pays for so-and-so costs. We're not going to be doing that anymore. So Kristen, are you shaking your head? No, we're not going to be doing that anymore, or no, I'm wrong about saying that?
No, you're not. We're not going to be doing that anymore. We're going to be combining the operating costs to produce, distribute, treat the water, and share them pro rata basis on to each of the systems. Patrick mentioned, there's a couple of ways we could do that. We haven't really decided on a way forward with that, but in an easy way to do it is based on the number of connections per system. They get that percentage of share of the total cost, or we meter the water that is consumed within each system. And
why wouldn't doesn't the monthly fees go to that? Or not the monthly fees, the water fees that we just generally pay.
Mm-hmm.
We're paying $1,085 or whatever.
Yeah,
it is
but
next year.
we wouldn't be dissolving the local service area entities. They would still exist. So with each local service area, they have to have their own set of books. They have to have their own set of reserve funds, because you still have this part that Patrick's getting at, is the infrastructure that's under the ground that needs to be serviced and maintained and replaced, and patches and holes in those systems need to be.
But the cost would come out of that $1,085. So if say you did it at a number of connections and number of houses, and every house pays $1,085.
Yeah.
So it would be, and that's regardless, King Edward Bay, Bluewater, Bowen Bay. 10%, or I'm just throwing a number out. Of that would go to
reserves.
To costs, to operational costs. I'm just throwing 10% out. I don't know what the number is, but it's not an additional surcharge that you're talking about.
There's not going to be that transfer of money from Bluewater Park to King Edward Bay in the sense that it is now. Right. Where there would be transfers between the local service areas is anytime there's a cost to do a significant upgrade to the supply. So well upgrades or to build a new storage tank, any of those large assets that are servicing the entire system need to be, the costs of those need to be shared among all of the people who are benefiting from that system.
Of course.
So
of
those
course.
would be dealt with through transfers of one local service area to the other, wherever that asset is located. If we put a tank in Bluewater Park, then the other local service areas would have to help contribute to build that tank, because that tank is now servicing this interconnected system.
Right, I got that.
So,
That-
yeah.
That's fine. I just want to get back to the payment, just the regular payments,
Right.
operational payments would just
So
simply.
what we would be doing effectively would be to tally up all of the costs for production and distribution in Bowen Bay, and we'd add those to King Edward Bay, and we'd add those to Bluewater Park, and we'd have a big number of the combined value of the three systems.
Right,
And then we would allocate those costs back to each system, either based on the amount of water that was consumed in King Edward Bay and Bowen Bay and Bluewater Park, or by an equal amount per connected property. There's a couple of
Okay.
different ways we could do it, but either way, it's fairly allocating the costs of the combined system among all of the users in the area.
right. So if the combined system costs were $100,000
Mhm.
and there's 147 homes in
Yeah.
Bluewater and 50 in King Edward Bay and 30 in Bowen
Yeah.
Bay, you take, what's that, say 200 homes divided by $100,000. I don't know, I can't do math, $500 something. That would come out of each, the $1,085 that we're paying.
Correct.
Okay, that's all and that's where I want to see this in writing, like specifically laid out that, yes, what you just described.
Yeah.
To everybody, because I know you're telling us in Bluewater, but I'd like that same, what you just dialogue said to presented to King Edward Bay and Bowen Bay.
Yeah.
Again, more in writing than just talking about it, but like, here's how the costs are going to be.
Yeah. We're
Because-
still at kind of the very nascent stage of really formalizing what that would look like. But certainly there would be reports to LACs and there would be reports to council that we would set out our method of cost recovery for the combined system.
And yeah, but when is that? See, this discussion's been going on for 15 years or more,
Mhm.
right? About this is what we're going to do and this is what we might do and so on and so forth. And
Mhm.
none of those promises or none of those things that have been said have actually come through.
Yeah.
Because it was not officially actually written down, like,
Yeah.
made. And that's what that's what I'm looking for. I can't speak
Yeah.
for everybody else.
We'll have that in
But
writing.
All right,
in reports and staff reports. Yeah.
all right. I'm done.
Kristen?
Mhm.
But just to clarify, the costs that will be allocated amongst all three systems will not include any repairs or maintenance to the actual water lines that are in the ground.
The water lines and given the age of the difference in age and condition of the water lines, those costs will be tracked and maintained separately by the three water systems.
And one more thing, sorry, Allison, then also water conservancy, is that the right word? And restrictions apply across the board? Because this year we had Bluewater at,
There's a
Stage
question
4.
coming up on that, Jonathan. Maybe you can hold it till that comes up.
I can't hold it, Allison. I'll hold it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I guess the second question about the well maintenance and repairs, you pretty much have answered, Patrick and Kristen, in regard if a well in one of the three, or one of the many, or if a pump in one of the many wells throughout the three LSAs does fail and need to be repaired, those are classified as operating costs. It's ongoing maintenance costs. That would be part of the operational cost that would then be divided across all three systems.
Yes.
Yeah, or LSAs. Yeah.
I also just wanted to clarify on something that when Kristen was providing her explanation, she gave the example of a reservoir in Bluewater being financed by all the systems. That wouldn't I don't think that would be the case. If we're building a reservoir to provide fire protection for the Bluewater service area, the King Edward Bay service area wouldn't be paying for that reservoir. They already have a reservoir. So I just wanted to clarify that wasn't probably the best example to.
Yeah. Well, but fair enough, Patrick. But once if we do get to the level of adding additional reservoir coverage, volume coverage that is going to be interconnected, for instance, Bowen Bay's water tankage is quite low in volume, so they'd be gaining benefits from the combined system of the existing King Edward Bay tank and any new Bluewater tank that would be sized appropriately to accentuate the whole system, as well as the future Arbutus Bridge too. Understanding also that the Bluewater tank, any kind of upgrades in the future on that of increasing size would also provide the additional fire flows for the community at this end of the line too. So then those definitely are going to, as we get into the next phases, are going to be important questions to answer with the community as well, and those kind of large infrastructure upgrades.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Next question. It's around the volume meter rating system that LAC, Bluewater Park LAC had voted on back in July to adopt to promote water conservation and make it more of a fair sharing of the water usage type of system. And I guess the question is, will the other LSAs be looking at the same thing so that we'd have the alignment? And in Bluewater's mind, that alignment definitely is an important aspect of even water conservation promotion.
Mm-hmm. And it's the same rate structure that's being proposed for all three systems.
Mm-hmm.
So.
But you're not quite there yet, from what I understand. So that's a work in progress.
We haven't had our meeting with Bowen Bay yet, but we had our meeting with King Edward Bay, and that they endorsed the same plan. So yeah.
Oh, good news. Good.
Yeah.
Good to hear.
Yeah.
So 2 out of the 3, we're getting there.
Yeah.
Okay. Next question, since well optimization phase, did I miss one here? We'll go through. Okay, since the well optimization phase includes Bluewater contributing to infrastructure upgrades and costs in the Bowen Bay LSA, how does BIM see the cost sharing being negotiated? And this is more of just a question around bylaws for LSAs, funding from one to the other. And then there's, and of course, we've had discussions in the past about how the sharing separation, also recognizing Bowen Bay will have significant benefits eventually. And not to say that we're wanting to meddle in Bowen Bay's finances of when they want to make the decision to upgrade their system to different levels. That wasn't the intent of this. It's just more of a clear understanding of how we can get to a point where it's fair and equitable for the different users, and Bowen and Bluewater Park also recognizing that there's going to be significant advantages once all the wells throughout the 3 systems are interconnected and being optimized better for a water supply, and we do recognize that.
Yeah, and I mean, the real driver for upgrading the Bowen Bay wells is the fact that Bluewater doesn't have enough water, and you know, that's where the financial breakdown of Bluewater essentially paying for the bulk of these upgrades comes from. And you know, there is a capital replacement component that is a more minor part of the overall cost that would be paid by Bowen Bay. You know, it is true about the fact that this interconnection happens provides the ability, once Bowen Bay upgrades their mains, that to have fire flow. So there's that potential benefit there. You know, we hadn't attached a value to that. You know, it's part of the, you know, essentially selling this to and getting the agreement from the Bowen Bay community, who a lot of them would say, well, we don't, you know, we have plenty of water. I mean, we don't really, you know, we don't really need to do this. You know, and Bluewater has the same, you're interconnected. You know, you have the same advantage. You could upgrade mains and have fire flow to at least part of the system. You wouldn't get fire flow to the far end, the upper end of it, without another reservoir tank or a dedicated main from the new upper, the future upper King Edward Bay Reservoir. But I mean, Bluewater didn't pay money to King Edward Bay for that potential benefit, right? So it gets into.
I don't understand that statement, Patrick. What do you mean Bowen Bay or Bluewater did not pay for what benefit?
Well, you have a benefit of being connected to the King Edward Bay tank, right? You know, if you upgrade your mains, which is part of the plan, you can deliver much better flows for fire protection to the system.
Right, which is what we're doing. But your statement, it says, like we're talking about like the advantage of Bowen Bay getting with fire flow, that they should pay a certain amount into this upgrade. Then you're saying Bowen Bay did not pay. Well, we are paying. We're paying for the well from Bowen Bay to pump the water into the King Edward Bay tank. So I don't follow this why you're saying we're not paying like Bowen Bay did not pay for that. I didn't see the last sentence. Did not pay for this potential benefit. We are paying for the benefit. We're paying for it.
You're paying for the well upgrade. That's the reason. It's driven by your need for water.
Yeah, which is giving us a better fire flow, right?
Well, you already have a connection to. I'm not talking about Bowen Bay. You already have a connection to the King Edward Bay Reservoir, and you're paying for the operation costs. You're paying for water, but you didn't pay for that connection. And you're asking, well, why shouldn't Bowen Bay pay for this potential benefit that you've gotten and haven't paid for? So I guess what I'm saying is
I mean, King Edward Bay hasn't paid for it either then.
Okay. The reason that you don't have enough water, you need to pay for this.
We are, and I realize that, right?
Okay,
like I get that.
so,
I'm not disagreeing with that, but Bowen Bay is getting a benefit of now they're connected to this big tank. No, they're not.
There's got, if I'm understanding correctly, what the first step is that Bluewater needs more water for drinking water. And there's a line that has to be, the pump has to be upgraded at Bowen Bay to do that.
Yes.
And a line has to be put in from Bowen Bay through to put more water in the King Edward Bay tank so that there's more water for Bluewater to take out.
Yes.
That line into the King Edward Bay tank is of no benefit to Bowen Bay because the water doesn't run the other way out of the tank. They've got to pay to put in another line that will come from the tank to Bowen Bay.
Okay.
And
Well,
the cost of putting that line in isn't in Patrick's cost for Bluewater.
Right.
No.
And that's a phase down the road, even with Bowen Bay facing the decision of when they want to upgrade the rest of the lines. Then they're going to have the benefit of the larger volume of King Edward Bay tank to supply the volume required for fire flow requirements. So that's a step process down the road. And it's not meant to cloud this first phase of the well optimization. It's just a recognition that there's a bigger picture here on the steps that we eventually take for future upgrades for all of us in sharing the whole system with the interconnectedness and that. So I believe that's where we were trying to go with this statement so that it wasn't getting lost in the grass.
Okay.
Okay.
Can you scroll down, Kristen?
Let's see.
Please. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Okay.
So I think we're at the end of all that, we're on the same page with this, that the proposed financing for the well upgrades, the way that's been proposed does make sense to this committee. Is that?
And I haven't, like, if we're going to get down to arguing about dollars, where also realizing that the direct benefit right now is going to be for Bluewater Park. And just to put in this point of your email that you sent out, Patrick, here just the other day, we have 0 wells in operation in Bluewater. So we're now gaining 100% reliance on the water coming out of the King Edward Bay tank. So definitely, and yes, we need to look at getting that well fixed as part of this well optimization and replacing it with something that's more optimized to accentuate the whole system. So there's no argument with that, at least from myself and some other LAC members. So yeah, we recognize that this is an important next step for us to get to a more reliable, potable drinking water system supplying us so that we're not hitting these stage 4s.
Mhm.
Okay. I think this is the question that you brought up again, Jonathan, about future water restrictions implemented in the west side. Patrick, you did provide a bit of an answer on that in regard to how that would be handled.
Yeah, I mean, generally, it would make sense if all 3 service areas are being supplied from the same sources, that water restrictions would be consistent. And I added this caveat that, you know, if there's a situation where there ends up being substantial leakage in you know, one service area that is causing problems for the others, then there might be a case for applying higher level restrictions in that service area.
Yeah. And to me, that makes sense. Okay. Bluewater Park community does recognize the water mains will be required replacing in the near and long term. The community will require further clarification on which areas to be prioritized. I know that you did a presentation on the October 26th meeting, and you did zero in on a couple of sections, maybe just for just to remind us again, maybe talk about those sections briefly on it. Okay.
Okay, maybe do you want me to go back to that?
Sure, that
Maybe
sketch
you
that
can
you
stop
had. Just
sharing your screen. Kristen will share mine. All right. Sorry. Okay, can you see that?
yes, we can.
The map we presented on the 26th. And the sections in red are what we've proposed as being the highest priority, and I'll just go through the reasons for that again. So you've got the 2 supply connections from the King Edward Bay system, which in future would be supplied by the Bowen Bay wells as well. Those are very undersized. This system was essentially laid out based on water coming from the other direction, right, from the Bluewater tank, whereas now the bulk of it's coming from the south.
Right.
These are similar to the line on Spyglass, they're this thin wall plastic pipe that has a likely has a higher probability of failure than the iron pipe that a lot of the rest of the system has. So that's one reason, and then it's a major flow restriction. So replacing these small mains with 8-inch connections would substantially improve the ability to deliver flow to the Bluewater system. So that was really the key drivers for these sections. The section to the northeast of the Captain's Way Windjammer intersection, that's where we had the leak that occurred this summer, and we saw, at least at this location, the pipe was not well installed or bedded correctly, and the reason for that leak was a jagged rock had punched through the iron pipe. This is connecting to the new section that was installed in 2020, where the leak at the Spyglass Ravine was repaired. So that would provide a new pipe section through what's, based on experience, appears to be a high risk section of main for leakage. The other priority section that we'd identified is another section with this 2-inch thin walled pipe. The other factor here is that it's uphill from the creek, so there's the added risk of if you have a leak that you're not able to locate quickly, you're also creating an environmental risk by having this chlorinated water leak into the creek. It's also a lot more difficult to locate leaks where you've got flowing surface water. The main tool, once you narrow it down as best as, or once the crews narrow it down as best they can, they have a listening device that they can essentially hear the leaks. It's very difficult where you have a creek next to it. And I think that's one of the reasons why they had so much difficulty in 2019 locating the leak near the ravine, near the creek. The other, which is, I don't know why this was done, but it appears that there was a new 6-inch main installed along Captain's Way. So you've got a 2-inch main, then you've got a new 6-inch main and you've still got an old 2-inch main that many of the connections along Captain's Way are still connected to the 2-inch main. They were not switched over for some reason. A few of them were over the years, as there have been leaks and problems with the service lines. They've been connected to the 6-inch main. So it would make sense to do what should have been done at the time, switch those connections over and decommission the 2-inch main. That would eliminate a risk factor of having this old main that's active and in service and subject to leakage when we could relatively easily decommission it. So that's and then the yellow are older mains that also need to be replaced. And it may be that the next leak that happens isn't on one of those red sections, it's on one of the yellow sections. We don't really know that. This is the information that we have, and we've made some judgment calls about what the priorities are based on that. recognizing that there's a community's ability to pay is a key factor in, I mean, ideally we'd replace all of the yellow mains as well. You know, that's going to add another $1 million to the, or 1.3 million to the project cost. So, you know, they do have to be done. We've proposed a phased approach, and that's, and then the blue mains are newer, likely have some life left in them, and you know, expect they will have to be replaced at some point, but could be further in the future.
Patrick, we talked about Captain's Way and that decommissioning that 2-inch, is that in the phase 1 budget?
Yeah, we have proposed that as part of phase 1. Yeah.
And does that also include connecting all the properties? Or is that the homeowner's responsibility? Or
It would include switching all, essentially the cost of that would be switching all the service connections, installing new service connections from the 6-inch main, and then decommissioning the 2-inch. It probably wouldn't be, you know, ripped up. It would just be left in place and capped.
so there's water running into both those pipes right now.
Right.
Yeah. So what this is definitely is our next steps in upgrading, starting the upgrades of the older, more at-risk sections of the system. And I think looking at this, Patrick, where we talked about the next phase because of the step approach, I think it would be a fair thing to present to the community, maybe not in the form of a formal referendum, but as a poll question of would there be an appetite to also look at this next phase included in the round of financing that. So that's something that we can still pursue further. We're not going to answer that today, but I think definitely with the community being presented with a referendum, there's potentially some choices here that may end up being a strong support of, okay, let's get at it with some more significant upgrades at the same time. I can't predict where that would go right now, but it's a fair question that we should involve the community on.
Patrick, when are you thinking of starting this? Or what would you want?
Well, we would start this work next year. The highest priority really is this addressing the lack of water, you know, before we get into next summer. But we're proposing.
But aren't like, when is the well thing, but the pipe thing, could not that be done simultaneously? Or
Yeah, it would be advanced. You know, we would like to advance it as soon as we can. And, you know, to Rob's point, I mean, it would be our preference to replace all of the old mains and, you know, eliminate that risk. Well, not eliminate, but reduce that risk, and also provide the capacity to deliver fire flows, right? That's you know, the other benefit of upgrading the mains. You know, and if we thought it would be supported, that would be a preferred referendum question would be to add that into the phase 1. Really, we took a closer look at you know, what we could glean from information that we have on risk factors, and came up with this phasing, you know, based on the feedback from the community and essentially the reaction to the larger costs. You know, if you put forward a referendum with, you know, a higher cost and a lower cost, you know, it's probably, people are probably going to gravitate towards the lower cost, but just a guess.
Yeah, but I guess it's just us framing the question of the options and the reasonings why that, hey, 2 years down the road, we could be coming back, or the muni coming back to ask for more money. to contribute. So that's definitely something we need to think about further, and on how we can do a step process or frame it out to the community of, here's your choices, here's the advantages, and what is your thoughts on it? And we can start off with a I guess a bit of a not an official poll, but more of a straw poll from the community, just to see what their thinking is and their support or no support or concerns that we may need to clarify further. And that's us working together over the coming months as we take the next steps beyond these initial phase.
Yeah, and I mean, if you practically, if you do if you borrow money to do phase one, and you amortize it over 30 years, and you've got that parcel tax, and then you come back in a few years and borrow and do another round of borrowing, that's just going to stack on to the parcel tax that you already have. So, in one sense, why not deal with all of it? But yeah,
or at least definitely the higher risk ones that will gain some more advantages to taking those steps toward fire flow that have been talked about by the community over the last number of decades as well, with some concern there too. So I'd say definitely we can do some follow up on that. But for today, let's get through this initial phase one of where we can go from there. Okay.
Patrick, who's responsible for the water lines within King Edward Bay?
Who's responsible?
Yeah,
Well,
like it's a strata, right? Like it's not public land, like it's not the roadways and stuff.
no, it's all municipal systems.
Yeah.
I mean, we're responsible for the municipal systems.
Right.
It's just
Okay.
that we have this local area service structure that makes things more complicated than if it was just a municipal service that we provide to the municipality, in the way that the service of having roads that access people's properties is provided. Yeah.
Okay.
There's more than just the stratas involved in the King Edward Bay service area.
Yeah,
There's private individual lots that aren't part of the strata as well.
right. Yeah, no, but I was just thinking about the strata itself, like the roadway and everything is private. I just didn't know how that worked. Like,
Okay, I'm with you now. Yeah, if it's a water service line, if it's a line on a strata road, then that's essentially a service line. That's a strata. That's strata infrastructure. For it to be municipal infrastructure, it has to be on municipal property.
Or an easement created for it.
Or an easy, yeah.
Yeah.
so if there's a lake within any strata property, I'm not picking on King Edward Bay, then they're responsible for fixing it.
If it's a strata property,
Strata
yes.
property.
Yeah, and I think that Jonathan, there are some stratas or private roads within Bluewater that has come up in past discussions with Liam on how those could be handled as well too.
I think this Isle View is a strata line.
It is. That's where I live.
Yeah.
So that's why I was asking.
Yeah, and I think that there's a bit of a connection that goes up Schooner Lane, and then there's in past minutes over the decades about even Mutiny Lane going up to the water tank, and currently there's no provincial license for that equipment up there too that needs to be looked at. So yeah, there's still a lot of things that need to be worked through for wrinkles on the remaining part of the system that's going to take some time to solve.
Yeah.
Okay. Couple of last questions here. Bluewater expressed some concern about current road-based structure, et cetera, and what happens. And I know that Liam made a comment about cut and cover, but definitely there, and understandably, funding for major paving of roads and that's got to come from different reserves and that just, and there's not a big pot of money with the municipality to do those kind of things, but also there's an expectation that even Bluewater, being kind of the forgotten community, is finally looked at from a let's make things better out here too. So that's on there as being recognized as a takeaway in the minutes too, Patrick.
Yeah, and I don't know about, Bluewater being a forgotten community. I mean, there's a lot of road that.
Oh, yeah, recognize that.
On the island. So there's a lot of road per capita in
Yeah.
in Bowen, and certainly we would strive to do better than what's happened in the past in terms of integrating infrastructure work, road work, and utility work. Whether it makes sense to redo a whole road versus just repaving the waterline trench portion of the road would depend on the condition of the road. With that spyglass line, there's a number of culverts under that road that are they're at the end of their life, as are the majority of culverts on the island. There's steel culverts that have corroded. They wouldn't necessarily be the highest priority in terms of leading to risk of road failure. But if we're installing a new water line down that road, it wouldn't make sense to leave the old culverts in place. So that would be a substantial municipal project cost that would have to be integrated with the water main project.
Yeah. So yeah, we just wanting to make sure that stays on the table as in consideration, that it's part of even when you're talking with mayor and council on some of these and whys and whats and that it's out there for everybody. Okay. And then the last point was just about the grant funding opportunities and realizing that replacement of existing infrastructure because of its age, and that is likelihood of grant funding is pretty much slim to none. But if we're expanding on the system for fire flow, there could be some, and I know that there's been comments in the past in previous LAC minutes from Muni staff that typically green technologies, advancing technologies usually win out over things like fire flow, increasing reservoir size and that, but we always want to stay in the slot for potential for something that could help out the communities on the west side for advancing this to be a more robust system in the future. Okay. Okay, so that kind of goes through some of the thoughts from LAC members that we had some reflection on based on October 26th meeting. Steph, do we want to put it out to the community, see if there's any questions that is further above of area concern above what we just talked about?
Sure, that's a great idea. And then I can do a share screen of the recommendations. Sure. Okay, community members, you can put a question in the chat if you'd like, or you can open up your screen and put up your hand or your digital hand. Well, I think you guys are so thorough and excellent and diligent in your work that no one has any questions. Why don't we start with the recommendations and then see if something pops up.
Okay.
I can put it on screen.
Put it on screen, please.
Okay.
Thank you. Now, I think this has to adjust a little bit, Patrick. I was looking at it today, and it's pretty generalized right now, but it's that steps. But you did send out a late item, I believe yesterday, in regard to the Bluewater number 3 well has failed, and you would like to advance the optimization replacement of that well from phase 2 to phase 1, which is going to change a little bit of the cost structure that you're proposing here, as well as I think some of the wording in the recommendations.
Yes, since we had the October 26th meeting that well number 3, Bluewater well number 3 has failed, we haven't gotten to the bottom of why yet. We'll have somebody investigating that next week. It is the one Bluewater well that was recommended by the hydrogeologists and urban systems to be upgraded for optimal performance. It's the well that has the best characteristics, the best recharge characteristics in the Bluewater well field. So yeah, we had included that in phase 2 of the proposed project. And the only reason for that was essentially that it has less, it contributes less water than the Bowen Bay well upgrades, where the bulk of it comes from. And in an effort to try and keep the amount of money that's needed to be borrowed down, it was proposed as, well, maybe we can do that later. In light of what's recently happened, it would make more sense to include that as part of phase 1. And what we're proposing as phase 1 is to upgrade all of the Bowen Bay wells, 1, 2, and 3, and also Bluewater well number 3.
So that'll change the wording of that slightly, Steph. Other LAC members, any comments in regard to that switch up a little bit in regard to well number 3 moving forward?
Well, I mean, that's fine. I guess there's some sense there, but with Patrick going on about, the other wells, we're getting into a little scope creep, I guess, right? Like, why don't we do this? Why don't we do that? And, again, a lot of this is coming down to money, right? Like it's a huge chunk of change we're talking about here. So sometimes things do make sense, but
So it's I guess what was proposed as phase 1 on October 26th was the total amount was about 1.56 million, and that was what was recommended as phase 1 borrowing. We'd be increasing that to 1.64. So yes,
but that was for well 3. You said that was
if we add Bluewater well 3 to the phase 1 scope.
Okay.
So yes, it is.
But we're not. What I was thought you were mentioning about the other 2 well upgrades as well.
Well, I guess that what I'm trying to understand here is you've got a recommendation about moving forward with implementation of the well upgrades, but it doesn't include the recommended water main upgrades in the recommendation.
There's 2 recommendations as part of the agenda, Patrick. So the first recommendation is on the well optimization, which references what Steph has up on the screen of Bowen Bay water system wells 1 and 2, as identified in the phase 1 of the west side water system improvements. We're considering adding the Bluewater Park well 3 because we've got failure. It's going to have to be pulled out, looked at, and that gives us an opportunity to then deal with that at the same time from optimization. And I get the synergies of doing that. The second recommendation talks about the borrowing for the overall phase, which includes those sections of high risk line upgrades on that section on Windjammer, the Captain's Way, and that Spyglass. And that's what the second recommendation is
Right,
covering.
sorry, okay.
Yeah.
So,
I see.
sorry.
I'm confused like Patrick is. The first recommendation only talks about upgrading the Bowen Bay wells. It doesn't talk about the interconnection of the Bowen Bay wells.
Right.
To the line from the Bowen Bay wells to the King Edward Bay tank. So you've got to do that too. So that needs to be in the recommendation.
In that first recommendation.
Yeah, so Bluewater Park System supports BIM moving forward with the implementation of upgrades to Bowen Bay water system wells 1, 2, and 3, and the supply line from the Bowen Bay wells to the King Edward Bay tank. Is that the right wording, Patrick?
Yes.
So I think the second recommendation was just about all of phase one, and that the first one was pulled out just because of the urgency of the Bowen Bay well. So you wanted to get that well. Is that right, Patrick?
Well, but the way it's worded, it doesn't talk about all of phase one. It's very specifically.
So
So
do
if
you
you
want
add it
one
in,
now?
so
Yeah.
do you want another recommendation after that? And that the Bowen Bay or the BWP supports the proceeding with the
Referendum to borrow.
with the referendum to borrow to, because I mean, yeah, but you don't
Well,
have to upgrade. Do you have to upgrade wells 2 and all 3 pumps in all 3 wells, Patrick, at Bowen Bay?
Well, that's what's recommended.
Yeah, okay.
I guess the difference is that one recommendation is relating to endorsing the whole
Right.
phase one program, which is
Yeah.
going to require referendum with the community due to the urgency of the supply issues and the need to deal with the wells that have failed, Bowen Bay well number 1 and Bluewater well number 2. We were what we are hoping to do is to advance the design component of the well upgrades immediately prior to going through the whole referendum process. So that's probably why the separation.
So maybe
So just putting my accounting hat on here. The upgrades to the Bowen Bay wells 1, 2, and 3, the new pumps. How much is that going to cost? I mean, there's about 580,000 or 600,000 in the project for the well connection system.
Yeah.
So that includes the upgrading of the pumps and the line.
Yeah.
The flow line, correct.
So how much is the upgrading of the pumps themselves?
Well, why don't I just go back to the
Because
presentation?
I guess I'm thinking, there's only about $70,000 to $80,000 in the reserve fund for
Right.
Bluewater Park. So is that enough money to pay for upgrading the 3 wells and the supply line? Or just
No.
upgrading the
No.
3 wells?
But it's enough to advance the project, to go get the pumps, to get somebody to come out and pull the pumps, to get the design for the electrical upgrades that are needed, and potentially to order some materials with long lead time, essentially to advance the project within the capacity of the existing reserve funds.
So is there a risk to the Bowen Bay wells of having an oversized pump if it's just for pumping into Bowen Bay reservoirs?
No, it would. I don't think so. I mean, we would definitely confirm that, but that's my understanding is it wouldn't be.
Because you want to do all the pump work at once.
Well, I guess what I'm getting at is that we anticipate problems next summer, and so if we look at timeline here, we've got, we have to have our new council brought up to speed on everything, essentially endorse the referendum process. Probably the earliest that can happen is the end of November. Then we have a couple of months process to go through the referendum before you have the funds approved. You're getting into the spring. We would like to find a way, in order to avoid problems in the summer and to increase the chances that we can actually have this completed before next summer, to get working on this now. And so there's some costs to
So I guess
to
what I'm trying to
design
get at is how much money are you going to need to get it going and to pull the, you're just gonna pull the King at the Bowen Bay pump. You're not actually gonna replace it.
Yeah, we're just proceeding with the design work, not
So-
actually the implementation.
And I believe you had mentioned like a 22,000 to 30,000 range for that, which could start coming out of reserves right now if we vote for that.
Right.
So that sort of maybe should be a separate resolution.
I think that was the intent, wasn't it?
Okay,
So we've gotten around to.
okay, so. Can you see those?
Yeah,
So the,
but it's the planning for,
okay,
Yeah, not implementation.
yeah.
Yeah, because Patrick needs the
Planning and
go ahead right
design.
away to the planning design to take the next steps to move forward to digging dirt next year.
So you probably. Probably just need to say as presented at the November 3rd meeting.
okay.
That design work, that's going to include the Bluewater well as well, Patrick?
We're amending that recommendation to yes, include
Yep.
the Bluewater well as well.
Okay.
Yeah, which to me, it makes sense to do.
I'm not sure that anything was, oh, maybe it was.
Pardon, Allison?
No, do we need a number in there?
Number of well,
No, the
Or
a dollar
cost.
figure.
okay,
I don't know. I'm just thinking.
Yeah, I don't have an amended fee proposal that includes the Bluewater well, but we could provide it would probably be in the 40,000 range.
That's on top of the cost for Bowen Bay or inclusive?
All inclusive.
Yeah, the design work
Yeah.
costs would be in that range.
So where it was is you were talking 22 to 30,000 during the October 26th meeting. Now we've factored in additional analysis and bringing forward the Bluewater well number 3 into it. So that's adding on about a $10,000 upfront design to get it figured out in this stage of it.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
So are we gonna say up to 40 or up to 50, Patrick?
Well,
If you put up to in front of it, Steph, it sort of makes it, because we're not totally sure.
Yeah.
And that can all be funded by the reserves, and then Bowen Bay would be paying for the pulling of the pump there to see what's going on with it.
Correct.
well, and I mean, they're going to want, based on what communications we've had, us to replace the pumps like for like, based on, lack of certainty or assurance that right now, in this time of year, the Bowen Bay wells 2 and 3 are adequate. When we get into summer, they won't necessarily be. So
Yeah.
But for
they're-
now, the immediate expenditure that you need to do, and you're probably gonna start by, before the end of the year on this part.
well, we would start immediately with this. I think if we have some assurance that we're getting going with this work right away, then that might affect how they feel about wanting to have a like for like done in the interim.
Yeah, and we've talked about that before, Patrick, that the like for like kind of scenario is based on existing infrastructure any LSA would cover a life for life replacement, and then anything to optimize it above and beyond would be covered by other LSA like Bluewater to accentuate to then expand the water over into the interconnection with King Edward Bay, correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So just, I mean, to give you a sense, I mean, that there's existing well pump in Bowen Bay Well 1, which is the most productive one, is about 3 horsepower, and the proposed pump is about 15.
Mhm.
And so the electrical upgrades are the big component of the cost there.
Yeah.
And there's a difference in the price of the pump too, I assume.
Right.
And availability. That's the other big
Oh, the supply chain, yes.
thing.
So the other thing that would be, proposed to Bowen Bay is that they consider moving forward with upgrading their main along Windjammer. I mean, that would have to be their cost, and they would have to finance it, so they would have to agree to it. That would mean their main and the fill line, the new fill line, could be installed in a common trench, which would result in cost savings for both projects. So,
Right.
But I don't know how they will feel about that.
And as stated before, that is a decision by Bowen Bay on their contribution for that LSA for those upgrade works too, as what we're talking about here for our own upgrade works. We can't influence what they want to do at what time they want to do it, as we don't expect them to be trying to influence ours.
Right.
Okay. Did we lose you, Steph? Your screen?
Oh, no, I just was gonna give you guys some space to chat. I will go back on. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay, so this one.
So that's the Bluewater Park Bluewater Park Water System Local Advisory Committee. That's a tongue twister. Support Bowen Island Municipality moving forward with planning and design of upgrades to Bowen Bay Water System Well Number 1, 2, Bluewater Park 3, pursuant to phase 1 and 2 of the Bluewater Water System Replacement Improvement Project as presented and amended at its November 3rd meeting for an approximate cost up to $50,000. Okay.
So
Do we need to add to be funded from reserves, Krista?
Yeah, I think that would be a good addition. Thank you, Counselor.
statutory reserves? Capital reserves?
You can just put reserves. They have a combination of surplus and statutory, so we'll have to
Okay.
figure out how much to take from each.
You better get the bills out for payment to get the
Yeah.
reserves replenished.
I actually can't set them until council adopts the new rate bylaw. But if
know.
anybody wants to make a payment early, we're happy to take it.
Gradually accepted, gratefully
Okay.
accepted.
Okay.
Okay, I think we've got 3 left. So
Are you gonna move that, Rob?
Yes, I will move what I just said here. You want me to repeat it again?
No.
No.
Who's gonna second it?
I'll
Jonathan?
second.
all in
Okay.
favor?
Rob's in favor.
I'm in
Jonathan's in
favor.
favor. Jerry's in favor. Yay,
Yeah, and-
guys.
Chana by chat room was in favor as well.
Okay, I've lost him. Okay, great. That's great. Next.
So we got that the Bluewater Park System Local Advisory Committee endorse Bowen Island, endorse single. Bowen Island Municipality proceed to referendum to borrow 1.64 million to replace water mains in the Bluewater Park water system as identified in the phase 1 of the Bluewater System Replacement and Improvement Project Works Program as proposed at its October 26th meeting or the November 3rd meeting.
Okay,
So where is the approval for the interconnection lines?
Isn't that's all part of it? That's
Yeah,
part of
it
the
is all
1.64.
part of it. I don't know
That
why
says
that was-
replace water mains.
Place
So
water
you need
mains
to borrow and is 1.64 million to
to upgrade the wells.
provide
and-
the interconnection.
Yes. Yeah, so
To-
that was part of Patrick's October 26th, as well as just briefly hit on today meeting. So maybe, yeah, we need to reference back to the October 26th presentation.
You
on
are
the-
referencing, but you're very specifically in the motion saying replace water mains.
Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah.
why
Oh,
that's
and-
there.
So
sorry.
now you're saying, and provide interconnection with Bowen Bay
And upgrade the wells too. It's
And
all
upgrade
upgraded
wells.
pieces.
Yeah.
and upgrade the wells. Yeah.
So it's Bowen Bay wells number 1 and 2, right?
Yes.
1 and number 2 and Bluewater Park.
No,
Nope.
well, it's also well number 3, right?
Can I just say upgrade wells as
yes,
identified?
upgrade wells.
Upgrade Bowen Bay wells. Yeah.
Right.
Well, it says as identified in phase 1.
Okay, but you need to, you can't just specifically say in the blue water system. You need to
Gonna be
say,
both.
Oh,
either
right,
delete all the
sorry.
references.
You're right.
But the Bluewater Park well is in phase 2, so
Actually, we've just voted to include it in phase 1.
yeah. But
So
so
replace water mains in Bluewater Park water system and provide interconnection lines.
provide interconnection with Bowen Bay.
Supply line from Bowen Bay and
From Bowen Bay to King Edward Bay.
Yeah.
and the well optimization. Now, Patrick, just quickly, there's no well optimization needed on the King Edward Bay wells or Arbutus Ridge wells.
We haven't recommended that. There were some recommended optimization for the King Edward Bay wells, but the amount that it would add to the well flow is relatively small. So it may be something that we consider in the future, but it wasn't proposed as part of the current program.
Okay.
You know what might be helpful, Patrick, is if we could do a, like, I can say amended, if we can take that Bluewater Park well number 3 and take your presentation that you did in October or last time and today, and just move that over and include it in phase 1, then the amendment would be reflected in that for a revised package.
Yeah, we can
Or
update.
you
the
just say
presentation.
optimize wells in Bowen Bay and
Bluewater.
Park. Is the optimizing of the wells the actual new pumps and
Yeah.
Yes.
and stuff like that? Okay.
Yeah.
Putting it into layman's ease,
Mhm.
layperson's ease.
What am I doing?
Fine.
I was just not trying to understand what optimized wells meant.
Okay.
Okay, so how does this sound? That the Bluewater Park Water System Local Advisory Committee endorse Bowen Island Municipality proceeding to referendum to borrow 1.64 million to replace water mains in the Bluewater Park water system, provide interconnection supply line from Bowen Bay to King Edward Bay system. What do you think?
Yeah, sure.
It's the water tank.
Is it going to the water tank or the chlorination?
Well,
it's-
yeah.
It would connect to an existing supply line that's from the chlorination shed, so.
Which is
yeah,
down on Windjammer, right? Yeah.
just off Windjammer, yeah.
So by just stating King Edward Bay system is clarifies enough, and optimize wells in Bowen Bay and Bluewater Park as identified in phase 1 of the Bluewater Park Water System Replacement Improvement Project Works Program as proposed at its October 26, 22 and amended at the November 3rd, 2022 meetings. Allison, what do you think?
Yeah, are you gonna move that?
I like how it sounds. I'm gonna move it.
Second,
All in favor?
Hey,
And Jonna also approved through chat. There we go. And
Mackerel.
Mick was behind the scenes garnering his support for all this as well, even though he's in a major time zone change. So we're taking a step forward. Now the big job of continuing to inform the community and get them on board for everything, because there's still going to be questions to be answered that we're going to have to work hard to answer those and make the comfort level feel to a level that fingers crossed the referendum is going to be in favor to finally, after years of asking for it, get some upgrades going here in Bluewater and not have to live through stage 4 anymore. Yay, thank you.
Well done, volunteers. It's been a lot of time
Thank you.
for you guys.
Patrick.
Thank you so much.
Patrick, how you feeling?
Well, I'm very pleased that the Bluewater LAC has taken this step of endorsing this path forward. So,
Yeah.
I think that's great.
Great.
Thanks.
Any other
Next
new
meeting
business?
ever? No, just kidding.
We're already 6:37. We're 37 minutes past. Is there any
Let's
new
meet again on
business?
Tuesday.
Any new business to bring forward? Doesn't look like it. Information items, is that just more of a placeholder that you just put in this?
It's a
Let's see.
placeholder.
Okay.
Keep the island plan in there.
Island plan, it's a link to that. So next meeting to be determined. Definitely, we're gonna have to talk about next steps for referendum. I think we need to circle back on conversations with the community further, more clarifications, and then how we're gonna do this referendum and getting new mayor and council up to speed on where we want to go with this.
Yeah, but we definitely need a communications plan and we need to really finalize that very soon.
Can I mention as well that the and thanking you again, when we got together with the communications department to come up with messaging, your comments were really helpful.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I know that it did create some anxiety when the initial communications did come out on the Muni website. But again, the LAC members are here to help. We can help form the communications, the story to help clarify with the community and be an additional conduit to the community. It did invigorate the community, and they're asking questions. They want to know, and there still is a lot of questions out there and concern, but they're listening and they want to participate. So we're on the right track.
So I've just got a question in the chat. Do we have a timeline on referendum at all? When that would
That's a
be?
question for Kristen.
Forward on at the end of November council meeting, or that would be the soonest we could do it, and get their endorsement to proceed with the process. And then there's probably takes a couple of months to go through the process.
The whole referendum process is something like 92 days from start to finish or something like that. So we kind of gotta pick a date and work backwards from there, something that's going to fit so that we can embark on that work before, I mean, you'd like to see it done before the end of June for sure, eh, Patrick?
Referendum?
No, I mean, to get started on the well.
You want to put a
optimization.
shovel in the ground.
Well, I mean, the sooner the better, right?
Yeah.
So as soon as we can get it going would be
Yeah.
the answer, I suppose.
And the design aspect can kick off right away, because that definitely is the lead time you need, Patrick. New mayor and new council members will inevitably have a lot of questions. I notice Tim Wake is present tonight, listening quietly behind the scenes. Thanks for attending, Tim. I know that other councillors have attended back in the October 26th meeting, new councillors. So there's definitely an interest, and even previous council from our crisis in 2019, when we were severely depleting of water and it was essentially flowing to the ocean in the Spyglass Stream. Mayor and council at that time reinforced the importance of solving this out here with the Bluewater community, and look forward to working with mayor and council, new mayor and council on taking the steps forward to move things forward that's acceptable for the community, that's affordable, and that we work hard to communicate and listen to the concerns of the community so that we can have them embrace what we all are trying to achieve here.
Thank you,
Okay.
Rob.
Thanks, Rob.
Dinner time.
So if I can say 6:41 p.m., let's close it out for the night and everybody can go have dinner.